From a certain vital Jedi Master not once being alluded to in the OG trilogy of legendary flicks, to notable Force users suddenly forgetting what they're actually, capable of. These are those times Star Wars felt a little bit patchy to say the least. Gareth here from What Culture Star Wars, and here are the 10 most annoying little inconsistencies in Star Wars, in my personal opinion. Number 10, Plo Koon's cockpit doesn't quite match up. Master Plo Koon's sudden shooting down at the hands of his one-time allies in the thick of Revenge of the Sith's game-changing Jedi Purge, they had actually come equipped with one rather odd inconsistency. As Captain Jag is given his life-changing orders from Emperor Palpatine and proceeds to fire shots at the masterful Jedi in front of him, it's clear Koon is piloting a Delta 7 Jedi starfighter. Only when the shot changes to one of the Jedi reacting to being gunned down by the clone captain, his surroundings within the fighter don't match up to that model in the slightest. In actual fact, Koon's interior seems to be that of the Eta 2 Jedi starfighter, first unleashed in the opening stages of Episode 3 as Obi-Wan and Anakin burst onto the scene. So was Kloon's inconsistent death caused by yet more Lucas tinkering late in the day, or were other mysterious forces at work in the lead up to the mighty Plo's fall? Probably the former, let's be honest. Number 9, the high ground isn't actually all it's cracked up to be. It was always going to be pretty tough to get through the recent Disney Plus Obi-Wan Kenobi series without at least one subtle reference to a certain high ground being held by a character at one point or another. And sure enough, during Kenobi and Darth Vader's climactic rematch of the century, Big Bad Vader gains precisely that. Justice, I say. Yet instead of leading to surefire victory and things being very much over, as Obi-Wan once put it, the former Anakin Skywalker's controlling of the high ground still doesn't guarantee him victory in the end. And this isn't the only time a Force user has failed to seal the deal upon taking this precious high ground either. Darth Maul also struggled to make good on such a glorious advantage in The Phantom Menace, when once again faced with taking down the eventual Ben. So does the high ground somehow only hold the key to victory for those who choose to see the light in the Force? Or did Obi-Wan just know better than anyone else how to get the most out of this particular combat situation? Either way, the high ground most definitely isn't a consistent game changer in this galaxy far, far away. Number 8, zero mention of Qui-GON being Obi-Wan's master in the original trilogy. A quick glance at the relationship between Master Qui-GON Jinn and Padawan Obi-Wan Kenobi over the course of the prequel trilogy and even the recent Disney Plus Kenobi series tells the story of two Jedi who were remarkably close and shared a rather strong connection through the Force. Yet said connection was seemingly nowhere to be seen at any point in the original trilogy, with Kenobi even going as far as to claim to Luke that Master Yoda was the Jedi Master who instructed him during the opening stages of The Empire Strikes Back. Admittedly, this is true from a certain point of view, you could say, with the little green legend likely having a hand in Obi-Wan's training as a youngling, and Yoda noting how he had training for Kenobi on Tatooine during his solitude towards the end of Episode 3. But the fact Kenobi doesn't even at least offer a nod to the master who arguably taught him the most over the course of his life feels strange when taken in the series as a whole. The OG trio of flicks coming into existence before Qui-GON even debuted in The Phantom Menace didn't help matters, of course. Yet that still doesn't change the fact that Jinn's eventual absence feels jarring all these years later. Number 7, inconsistent scan culture. It's noted pretty early into A New Hope that the Empire comes equipped with technology capable of scanning for life forms on spacecraft, with a Star Destroyer clocking that C-3PO and R2-D2's escape pod didn't contain anything of the sort as it blasted away from the action. Fast forward to a bit later on in the day, however, and said rather useful tech is nowhere to be seen as Han Solo and the gang find themselves being dragged into the Death Star by a tractor beam. Now, with a rugged pilot acting as a rather successful smuggler, there's an argument to be made that his hiding compartments on the ship may have boasted shields designed to help keep life forms off said scanners. But the fact he claims he never thought he'd be smuggling himself in them not long after they land in the base appears to somewhat debunk that kind of theory. The fact the Imperial forces were suddenly content with merely checking the ship's log and coming to the conclusion there mustn't be any life forms on board, before bizarrely sending in a human scanning squad inside just to double check, also seems utterly weird after already proving they possess kit that can simply pick up traces of life without even occupying the Falcon. Very, very odd. Number 6, Boba Fett being killed off too easily. From the second he initially arrived on the Star Wars scene during the events of The Empire Strikes Back, fans the world over were instantly captivated by the Beskar sporting badass that was the infamous bounty hunter Boba Fett. And over the years, the character's stock would only rise with the addition of many a comic book and animated/live action series, with it soon becoming clear that Fett sat as arguably the galaxy's greatest mercenary for a time. The nature of his controversial and once assumed death in Return of the Jedi, though, though, suggested he was anything but, it must be said. Being taken out of the action on the back of Han Solo, accidentally catching him off guard, and whacking his jetpack to the point of instant malfunction, the son of Jango went from intimidating and cold-blooded killer to slapstick fool in a matter of seconds, as he splattered against Jabba's sail barge en route to becoming Sarlacc dinner. Luckily, the character found himself wiggling out of this supposed end down the road, and set about rehabilitating his image on the small screen in the process. But there's still no questioning how out of character such a laughable demise was for this otherwise hyper-aware killing machine. Number 5, Luke Skywalker often forgetting he's Force sensitive. And in another case of a character seemingly forgetting what they were actually capable of in those truly vital moments of Skywalker saga action, Luke Skywalker himself didn't half have a funny old habit of acting like he was anything but Force sensitive over the course of the original trilogy, despite showcasing pretty early on in The Empire Strikes Back that he undoubtedly knew how to manipulate objects via the Force. Doing so in his quest to stave off a Wampa attack, the eventual Master Jedi regularly finds himself resorting to much less mystical methods to get the job done from there on out. The opening of Return of the Jedi sees Luke physically launch a rock at a button that brings a door down onto an incoming ranker, instead of, casually lifting the stone with the Force, or even just pushing the button from afar with said power. And later in Episode 6, Skywalker asks Han Solo to reach for his lightsaber upon being caught in a net on Endor, despite already showing he knows a thing or two about Force grabbing that very same weapon on multiple occasions throughout the trilogy. Use the Force, Luke, you've been told enough times. Number 4, that one time a lightsaber left a bloody mark. Whilst on the topic of lightsabers in the OG trilogy, now is probably as good a time as any to shine a light on that one odd moment of unexpected Mos Eisley gore that reared its head during A New Hope. Throughout pretty much the entire big screen Skywalker saga and small screen action that takes place within the galaxy far, far away, the sight of any real blood leaking out of a lightsaber-induced wound was pretty much non-existent. That's due to the fact that the weapon emitted such extreme heat that any wound inflicted was almost immediately cauterized. Not in the case of the unfortunate Ponda Baba though. In one of the first slices of lightsaber combat action to show up in the franchise, Obi-Wan Kenobi stops the towering alien in their tracks in the middle of a crowded cantina with a swift swish of his laser sword. Far from sealing the wound upon impact, as seen elsewhere whenever another character loses a limb in the series, this particular attack eventually results in a rather bloody arm being zoomed in on shortly after the exchange. Maybe Aqualish folk really are just built different. Or perhaps Lucas just really wanted to get some raspberry yogurt in on the intergalactic action. Yep, that's what that blow was made of, go and double check. Number 3, Force speed goes missing pretty early on. Kicking off the prequel trilogy with a Force-wielding bang, Qui-GON Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi introduced the masses to a rather neat trick in the form of moving at frankly ridiculous high speeds in order to evade some droidica blasts. But far from this being the first of many uses of this undoubtedly useful way to get out of dodge whenever space-age crap hit the fan from there on out, the ability suddenly goes missing for the most part. Had Obi-Wan opted to use this pretty epic power during the iconic Duel of the Fates right as his master and Darth Maul began to pull away from him into the laser gates of hell, for example, maybe he would have been able to keep Qui-Gon from biting the dust. Sure, said ability may have expended a fair bit of energy in the moment, but Mace Windu was able to keep on battling against an entire army of droids in the original Clone Wars animated series upon using said ability. So why wouldn't Kenobi be able to catch his breath a touch whilst meditating behind a force field with his master after catching up? What could have been, eh? Number 2, the rule of 2 doesn't always apply. It's pretty common knowledge at this point that there is usually only 2 entities to deal with when it comes to the dark force in the galaxy known as the Sith. No more, no less. And while this law, or rule of 2 if you will, pretty much stands up throughout much of the Star Wars saga, there was actually a moment during The Empire Strikes Back in particular when it seemed as though Darth Sidious completely forgot his own Sith rulebook. During the OG trilogy, the Master and Apprentice Darth Vader openly discussed the concept of recruiting the latter's son, Luke Skywalker, to their cause, even though doing so would lead to a blatant violation of said law. Now there's a chance both powerful Sith Lords were planning on using Skywalker as a way of seeing off the other, and keeping the rule of 2 ball a-rolling, as hinted at by Vader himself upon besting his son in a Bespin duel. But it does largely feel like the initial Sidious plan here was to simply have Luke join the dark side with his old man and serve under him as he continued to dominate the galaxy. Ancient Sith laws be damned. Number 1, Darth Vader suddenly forgets how to finish the job. He may have ultimately ended up showing off a few flickers of restraint and forgiveness towards the latter stages of his time amongst the living, but Darth Vader wasn't always one for holding back if he felt a touch brassed off, which was pretty often, let's be honest. Time and time again over the course of his earlier years terrorizing the galaxy, the former Anakin Skywalker could be farm massacring everyone from helpless civilians to his own allies in acts of sheer rage and anger. And that's what made his somewhat held back approach to taking matters into his own hands during the recent Obi-Wan Kenobi series a little bit odd to behold. Admittedly, there was still the odd beat of brutality sprinkled into the 6-part spectacle, with Vader's snapping of necks and choking out of innocent souls in a village, reminding fans what he's all about. But whenever the Dark Lord of the Sith was faced with an opportunity to end everyone from Reva to Obi-Wan in the show, he didn't actually do everything within his power to ensure both characters were unequivocally dead. Instead, he left them hanging on to life just long enough to service the story. Acts that didn't really match up with his other merciless actions throughout his early dark side history. It didn't make sense, but then we wouldn't have got to the original trilogy, I guess, so is what it is. Why so chill, Vader? Huh? Why so chill? And that's our list. Know of any other annoying little inconsistencies in Star Wars? Let us know all about them in the comments section right down below, and do not forget to like, share, and click on that subscribe button while you're at it. Also, if you really like this kind of thing, then head on over to whatculture.com and find some more incredible articles just like the one this video you're watching right now is based on. Trust me, there's loads, they're really good. I have been Gareth from What Culture Star Wars. May the Force be with you. Thank you as always for clicking on this fantastic video today. Hopefully I'll see your Force sensitive faces very, very soon, but in the meantime, just be good to yourself. Bye bye.